Now we actually have a Republican on the right side of an issue. This is a Colorado Republican who has now become the first member of the House GOP to support a bill on net neutrality. Well, that's interesting. Now, according to The Hill, who's reporting on this, Representative Mike Kaufman had announced on Tuesday that he would be signing a discharge petition, to bring the Congressional Review Act up for a floor vote. Now, again, Congressional Review Act is a way that Congress can go and challenge a regulatory agency on a recent ruling. For example, Republicans have actually used the Congressional Review Act on a lot of the Obama administration's EPA rulings. So things like not being able to dump coal ash in the river and things like that. These regulations passed by these regulatory agencies, Republicans in Congress were like, well, we don't like that. We actually think you should be able to dump coal ash into the river. And so we're very dissatisfied with this. We're going to do the Congressional Review Act, a measure of disapproval for this regulation. And look, that's a way for Congress to get rid of regulations and actually prevent similar regulations from being put into place. And Republicans have used that constantly during the Trump administration to be able to do that. Now, this Republican, however, is actually wanting to do the Congressional Review Act to do something positive, which is great. Now, he has his own piece of legislation along with signing the Congressional Review Act to codify net neutrality into law. Now, Kaufman's new bill, they explain, is named the 21st Century Internet Act. And what it would do is restore prohibitions on internet service providers blocking, throttling, or prioritizing web content. So, look, a lot of these ISPs are like, we're not going to block because that sounds bad. We'll probably do some stealth throttling, but really, our main thing is we want to do paid prioritization. So what is that? That's, of course, saying, hey, man, look, if you give us a little bit extra on your bill, we can prioritize your internet access to certain websites. That means that you will go faster on these websites. Now, there's, of course, other shady things that they're doing that this bill does not address. For example, I'm probably going to do a really, really terrible explanation of it. But basically, there are points of entry into the internet architecture where ISPs want to charge extra fees for being able to access. Like, you get into my part of the network, we will charge you extra money for you to be able to travel along our lines, which actually isn't their lines. This is public, or at least they were built by the public, these transmission lines that these ISPs are using. Nonetheless, they want to charge companies an extra toll to be able to use that. So that is problematic. And again, I probably butchered that explanation very simply, but nonetheless, even without that stuff, and by the way, the California net neutrality bill does address this. And again, I don't know if Kaufman's bill does, but still, the basics are there. No blocking, no throttling, no paid prioritization. Great. That's some of the major focuses of net neutrality, treating traffic as if it's all the same. Now, Kaufman in a statement said, while my bill moves through Congress, I'm taking an all-of-the-above approach by simultaneously signing the discharge petition on the CRA and introducing my bill. So that's what he's doing, and I think that's actually great. I don't give Republicans a lot of credit very often. But on this issue, the right and left, there's no reason that they can't actually come together and produce good legislation that actually helps people. Now, in this case, there is good reason for him to do so, twofold. Actually, a couple of good reasons. For one, net neutrality is not a partisan issue, right? Like, for example, when you ask the American people how they feel about net neutrality, they overwhelmingly approve. In fact, according to a Mozilla Ipsos poll conducted in February, released in May, 91% of Americans believe consumers should be able to freely and quickly access their preferred content on the internet. That actually grew from last year from the same poll. Now, on more, 78% of Americans believe equal access to the internet is a right. It is a right. That is very, very strong, unequivocal language. All right. And that, of course, is most common among younger Americans. That's 84% of adults under the age of 35. These are future voters, right? So these are future potential voters that say, yes, we believe that equal access to the internet is a right. Everybody should have equal access. Okay. Not only that, 76% of Americans believe internet service providers should treat all consumer data the same and not speed up or slow down specific content. So that, of course, deals with throttling. You have a majority of Americans saying, don't slow down or speed up content. Treat it all equally. Now, what's interesting about that is that a majority of older Americans, 80% of adults aged 55 plus, believe that you should not slow down or speed up specific content. It should all be equal. Those older voters, of course, generally skew Republican. Not only that, but 81% of Americans also share that same opinion. That's 81% of Americans with a college degree share that opinion. So that is a fascinating overlap that you have with older, more conservative voters and also more educated voters. There's more. Now, 63% of Americans, and this is on the self-regulation argument, right? So this is something that you hear a lot from Republicans. Oh, well, look, we don't need net neutrality because these internet companies, I mean, they're not going to do terrible things. They're going to voluntarily look out for consumers' best interests. Are they? Well, I would say no. And I join the majority of Americans in saying the same thing. In fact, 63% of Americans do not think ISPs will voluntarily look out for consumers' best interests. And to that I say, no duh. What they always look out for is their own best interests when it comes to their pocketbook, when it comes to their bottom line. So this poll is very, very encouraging because it was, of course, conducted across ideological lines. Democrats and Republicans, conservatives, and Americans in general, they all agree net neutrality is incredibly important. Now, let's go to the other reason, right? Now, Kaufman himself faces a tough re-election race in a district won by Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential race. Remember, he is from Colorado. Now, she won his district by about 5 percentage points. So Hillary Clinton won that. That's a somewhat more liberal district, but it's actually, I think, more of a purple district. So the Cook Political Report rates this race as, quote, a toss-up. So, look, here's a Republican taking the right position, right? Policy-wise. But, of course, it's based on, I think, likely for votes. Now, here's the thing about that, right? Since it is such a bipartisan issue, since it is such a popular issue, and since there's even corporate support on the net neutrality side, remember, you've got Mozilla that's in favor of net neutrality. You had Google, you had Netflix, you have other companies, a lot of small businesses that are like, yes, net neutrality, we rely on net neutrality because if we start getting ransomed by our ISPs, we're going to go out of business. We're not going to be able to afford this. So you've got corporate support on one side, and then you've got the ISPs on the other side. And right now, there's at least one Republican saying, I'm not going to take the side of the ISPs. I'm going to take the side of, yes, Google and Facebook and Netflix, but also the American people who overwhelmingly believe in net neutrality. And if it's hope for one person, well, then there's hope for others, right? And look, maybe, just like with Kaufman, other Republicans in toss-up districts, we might see the same kind of change. Republicans saying, hey, you know what, net neutrality, not so bad after all. Maybe it's not the Obamacare of the internet, which is absolutely ridiculous. But that's Ted Cruz for you. Oh, look, Ted Cruz, also in a competitive race with Beto O'Rourke. Anyway, now, I'm talking about Republicans, right? But there is also another angle to this, and that's, of course, Democrats. Now, look, if you have Republicans that are suddenly going into, hey, I'm a strong believer in net neutrality. In fact, look at me. I signed the CRA. Look at me. I have my own piece of legislation that is in favor of restoring net neutrality. Well, what's that going to do for Democrats? A majority of millennials, younger people, and again, a majority of the American people are very strong on their feelings about net neutrality. So this is not an issue where Democrats are suddenly going to go, no, net neutrality because the Republicans believe in. No, that's going to force Democrats who might be on the fence and who might be funded by big telecom to switch their position and go, oh, okay, hey, look, net neutrality, what are you talking about? I'm a big believer in net neutrality. So either way, I think it's going to be a win-win. It's going to be a win for the American people, and of course, it's going to be a win for a lot of these politicians that are running on that issue as well. So I think I want to give big props to Mike Kaufman for being the first Republican in the House, in office, to be on the right side of this issue. And that is, of course, no matter what, if you're a Republican and you go against some of these big corporations, that is a pretty principled stand to make. So, again, credit to Kaufman, and I hope he is successful, and I hope he sticks to his guns. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.